Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So I've had a few requests, like 2 requests, to talk about this brand, but I thought if a couple people are interested, I might as well talk about it since we're already going through some of these brands, how they're doing, what they've done this past quarter. Let's talk about Brunello Cucinelli. Now this is a brand I have never had any experience with. I've never purchased anything from this brand. I know a few of you guys seem to really like this brand. I really wanted to look into it as well as talk about how they've done this quarter. And the thing with Brunello Cucinelli, it is one of the few glimmers of hope we are seeing during this period of luxury decline. It is one of the few instances, the few glimmers of hope we are seeing in this era. What some have been saying is, yes, we are no longer seeing the double-digit growth, but we are going to see luxury go back to where it used to be. Now, will the quality be there? Will the design be there? That is up for question. Now, we've talked about LVMH, how they've seen a dip in the fashion and leather goods side. We've talked about Kering, how there's been a very steep decline, specifically at Gucci. YSL is also experiencing a decline, not Bottega Veneta. That is a bright spot. Brunello Cucinelli is also an instance, and there are other brands. We've talked about Hermes, we've talked about Miu Miu, but Brunello Cucinelli is also a case where this brand is doing incredibly well during this period where a lot of luxury brands are struggling to make sales in Asia, and it's not the case here. And I've talked about this in other videos, but a lot of luxury brands are putting the blame on the Asia Pacific region, the Chinese customer. Sure, the sales aren't happening, but there are other brands that are doing well. But according to Brunello Cucinelli, he actually believes luxury is alive and well, reporting a 9-month sales gain of 12.4%. I've always thought of Brunello Cucinelli as in kind of that same grouping of the Loro Piana. It's a brand that has a large menswear following. They're known for their cashmere, but like the ultra premium tier of cashmere is what they do. So Brunello Cucinelli had founded his namesake label in 1978 with the vision of creating the highest quality Italian craftsmanship with cashmere, and specifically creating colorful cashmere sweaters, which was a very novel approach at the time, because when you think about cashmere in its purest form, it's more muted. Brunello Cucinelli grew in popularity because it did something very different and they did it best. And the company is headquartered and based in the village of Solomeo in Italy. By the 2000s, Brunello Cucinelli had expanded internationally, developed this reputation for creating those timeless, elegant designs. The focus is on the luxurious materials and cashmere. In 2012, Brunello Cucinelli went public on the Milan Stock Exchange, gaining further recognition in the global luxury market. Cucinelli himself is known as the, quote, king of cashmere. The brand now offers a full range of luxury clothing, accessories for men and women. Its designs emphasize simplicity, quality, and a very classic aesthetic that really aligns with the brand's ethos and creating luxury products that are meant to last a lifetime. And this brand has continued growing and growing and growing, and it's actually doing very, very well now. In the first half of 2024, it increased 14.1% year over year. Profits grew by 19.3%. And according to the man himself, the growth and profits we pursue are stable, long-term, and sustainable. Adding, we also tell our investors that we earn reasonable profits. If you need excessively high profit margins, you might want to reconsider investing in us. And I read a really interesting article from Fashion Network. I'll link it down below. They use this term to describe him, which I thought was an interesting way to describe his brand. I think his philosophy, instead of quiet luxury, they use the term gentle luxury. The success behind his brand is described in this article as creating emotional connections with customers. The article states, previously consumers pursued multiple brands, giving multi-brand luxury groups an advantage. Now, however, consumers have become more loyal, spending their money on brands they feel a connection to, which presents more opportunities for single brands. This also requires brands to communicate and connect with people. Interestingly, the emotional connection that Brunello emphasizes aligns closely with aspects of both Italian and, they state here, Chinese cultures. It is based on traditional interpersonal relationships magnified into a network of values concerning style, emotion, aesthetics, where individual influence amplifies sales, forming underlying logic for brands to outperform the market. And in the article, Genter Luxury, it's poetically described as a friend who welcomes you with a sincere smile. It is someone who reaches out to you. It is creativity and genius that do not cross the line. It means finding beauty in simplicity. It is welcoming to all. It is within measure and is always appreciated as it knows the value of respecting others. This is why gentle luxury has a universal value. And again, when you look at the fashion, there is really no crossing the line here. There's nothing groundbreaking. I think personally for me, if I'm just gonna be real, I think I like a little bit more of an edge or something with just a little bit more of an artsy flair, especially at these price points. Perhaps this is why I haven't bought from this brand. It's also very expensive, but I don't really know if I'm the exact Brunello Cucinelli customer. But I think it is interesting how they point out the loyalty and the emotional connection made with their customers. And I think this is something that is very true with a lot of these quote unquote quiet luxury brands. They really do develop a following. People that are big fans of Hermes or even the Row, even like Bottega Veneta, they really do have very devout followings. The customer that often buys from these types of brands will be very, very loyal to them. And what was also interesting is they talk about kind of this like pop cultural element about the brand, which I never really thought about. I've only watched season 1 of Emily in Paris, but apparently there's a character, Marcello, who's based on the man Brunello Cucinelli, where he's this heir of a cashmere brand that is rooted in craftsmanship, as well as he has like a deep connection with his employees, and there's this feeling of serenity about him. It's also noteworthy that celebrities have also worn his fashion. Pamela Anderson and Oprah, to a lot of male celebrities, Brad Pitt and Ryan Reynolds, to like billionaires, Jeff Bezos, that whole conversation that honestly kind of like bores me what billionaires wear. But just in terms of the financial reports here, if we look across the board, the brand is doing well. The brand is doing well in all regions, but I was specifically most interested in what is happening in Asia because a lot of these brands are struggling. They're actually very much declining in this region, but Asia is up 12.2% compared to where they were last year, accounting for 26.6% of their sales. They talk about how China, Japan, South Korea, and the Middle East have had a solid performance. Sales in the Chinese market continue to be of great quality with growing results also in the third quarter that we believe are closely connected to a mix of highly significant factors. Among these, we would like to highlight the positioning of our brand, the exclusive distribution within the country, the appreciation for the ready-to-wear offering of the highest craftsmanship, and the handiwork and the taste of our collections with the expectations and requests of local customers in line with our type of offering. The Japanese and South Korean markets also contributed positively to sales in the period thanks to local demand and a balanced contribution from tourism. Another thing that I think sets Brunello Cucinelli apart from a lot of these other brands that we are often talking about, I at least am talking about typically accessories, brands known for leather goods. Brunello Cucinelli, it is in the form of ready to wear. It is in the form of your cashmere sweaters, your cashmere coats, scarves, clothing, and other accessories as well. But a lot of it is the ready to wear. For a lot of guys, I'm sure, I'm not this person, to get cashmere, you either go to Brunello Cucinelli or Loro Piana. And in this part of the luxury market, a lot of these luxury brands at Kering, at LVMH, if they make knitwear, a lot of the times it is not cashmere, or it's like partial blend of cashmere, or it might even be like a plastic blend. This isn't me saying that everything needs to be of 100% natural materials. If you're gonna make a sweater that's supposed to look like a cashmere sweater and charge it like it's a cashmere sweater, it should be a cashmere sweater. They've been able to appeal to, I think, that market as well. They also mention here how they're both doing well in both retail and wholesale categories. And what is also noteworthy here versus other luxury conglomerates is they're also meeting their demand requests. From the report, given this demand slightly earlier than last year, when the sales of the fall 2023 collections had carried more weight in the following weeks, we are fully satisfied with the high quality and timing of our deliveries, which enabled us to meet the requirements of wholesale partners in the best way. There is not only an aesthetic appeal, a quality appeal, but it's also like the business and the logistics behind the the brand that's really working here. The relationships that Brunello Cucinelli has made with its partners, it's working. There's just this holistic business strategy behind this brand as opposed to, I think, a lot of other fast luxury brands. This gentle luxury ideology comes from this philosophy. Every interview I read, he heavily references ideas around humanities and philosophy. The Fashion Network article talks a lot about this. The Vogue business article, he's heavily referencing the philosophy of Confucius. He talks a lot about humanism and harmony. It's very interesting to hear someone talk about this. I've read a lot of interviews from a lot of these designers. We've talked about them earlier this year, but the way he talks about his brand, it's this holistic philosophy behind the brand is very present, and it has seeped into how the business acts. And I also think it's also in how this brand treats their employees, this holistic vision. So this from Vogue Business. At Brunello Cucinelli, employee salaries surpass the industry average by 20% according to the brand, and communications via email or phone after 5:30 are not permitted. Individuals should prioritize time for their family and relaxation, allowing space to nurture their interests and passions. This is a totally different picture from what we are seeing with a lot of these other luxury brands. In a time where luxury is known for hiring third-party subcontractors with sweatshop-like quality, right? This is a very different way that Brunello Cucinelli, at least on this level, appears to be running its brand in a different way. The emphasis of a work-life balance with their workers is, I think, very appealing. Cucinelli asserts that the luxury sector must prioritize people above all, encompassing both employees and customers alike. Again, this very humanistic philosophy. For something to be luxury, it also needs to be not only just well made, and the employees need to be taken care of. Of course, this comes with an incredibly high cost. I was looking at the knitwear. This is what they are most known for, their cashmere. It starts at $1,100 upward to the $11,000 price point. And if you have fur and more expensive materials, it can get even higher. But I was just specifically curious about the cashmere, and they are quite expensive. Now, the argument for this, it's better to invest in few quality knitwear pieces as opposed to 10 fast fashion sweaters, right? Now, what was interesting to me is, according to their website, they offer free repairs. I further looked into this. This is a thing that they do. This from the Rob Report. After launching with cashmere knits in 1978, Cucinelli established a repair department to accommodate customers whose sweaters had fallen prey to moths, a fairly common issue that requires intricate reweaving beyond the abilities of the average local seamstress. The service grew alongside his product offerings and is now a standalone building at his Italian headquarters, handling everything from weaving and knitting to relining blazers and resoling shoes. Perhaps most remarkably and unique to Cucinelli, all of these services are performed at no cost to the customer. We like to think that this is sort of a lifetime guarantee for our clients, Cucinelli says. While the service has been available for decades, he says the past few years have seen notable growth. In 2019, the company estimates it performed 5,000 repairs for its global clientele. For Cucinelli, it's more than just a thoughtful customer service, it's a reflection of his brand's ethos. Italian design focuses on a timeless trait that makes you want to wear your pieces year after year, he says. Sustainability can be achieved in several ways, but I think timeless design is essential to this goal. Now, when further looking into this brand, I was really wondering, why is this brand so closely tied to billionaires? Why do so many billionaires wear this brand? Be it Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Oprah. The amount of times I saw an article or some video talking about Mark Zuckerberg's gray t-shirt from Brunello Cucinelli, I was like, wow, it's really interesting that this is being talked about a lot. But he's met with Silicon Valley billionaires. He actually invited several of them to his little tiny village, Solomeo, and they just had this meeting talking about what he's done at his brand, and I'm sure other topics arose. Even earlier this year, there was the Sun Valley conference where several billionaires, a lot of tech billionaires, this is where they meet each year, and it's strangely become a place where people are observing fashion. There was an article in the Washington Post detailing what people were wearing at this conference. And of course, Brunello Cuccinelli was very present. Brunello Cuccinelli has spoken at the G20 summit talking about the success of his business. He's met with world leaders, and I'm like, what on earth is happening here? One thing that I had found when going through a lot of these interviews, going through be it Vogue Business, be it his interviews with NBC, he promotes this idea of what he calls humanistic capitalism. This is something that he promotes with his brand. And again, this is an image that we are getting, I would say, from his perspective. This is what is promoted from his brand. And it does appear he practices this idea of humanistic capitalism, or how his business is run. So the idea of workers feeling dignified, they're able to spend time with their families, they're able to have a 90-minute lunch break, they turn off all communications with work at 5:30 p.m. They're meant to feel like what they are doing is meaningful. And what's very interesting is he talks about how his father, when he left the countryside, they used to live on a farm and they didn't have any electricity. Then his father started working at a factory, and he talks about the humiliation that his father experienced working at these factories and how he would come home with tears in his eyes. When he was 15 or 16 years old, he felt there was something deeply saddening about this is how workers were treated. So part of his business model is he wants his workers to feel dignified. That was something that he's always talked about whenever talking about his business, and he wants his workers to feel like they are doing meaningful work. When starting his business, he overhauled this small medieval town, Solomeo in Italy. This is actually where his wife is from, to build up his cashmere empire. When watching these interviews, it's a very compelling story. It's so beautifully told, it's so inspiring. When he describes the story on CNBC, or I was reading the G20 transcript of him telling the story of his business, or when he talks to Vogue Business, it's just a very beautiful story. And there's always, I find, a lot of beautiful visuals associated with this, around this humanistic capitalism. And we're seeing these images of Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. And humanism, it is very much this Renaissance ideal, this philosophy where there is a centering of the individual, where so much potential is placed on the individual, but also a shared common humanity. And this, like at the time, opposed a lot of these religious medieval values that was heavily centered on the following of religion, right? But there's also something about this idealistic vision of a humane capitalism that I think is also appealing to business leaders and a lot of world leaders. In a way, it does confirm a lot of these leaders, their worldviews. These innovators that may believe they are enhancing the world or the quality of life by manufacturing their products or creating efficiencies in how people live. Many of these businesses have overhauled cities, whole regions, to build their own empires, much like a Brunello Cucinelli story. There is sort of a connection with how Brunello Cucinelli has built up his empire, and I'm sure how a lot of these other businesses have built up their empire. Do they practice it the same? Maybe, maybe not. But I think it does put capitalism on this pedestal. Whether this humanistic capitalism is something that these billionaires wear because they believe in his vision of it, or even whether they practice this kind of humanistic capitalism, it's questionable. But I think there's something very aspirational about how he presents his brand to this class of people. Just the way a lot of these handbags are presented to us. We see a famous celebrity like Penelope Cruz or something walking on the beach with Brad Pitt. There's something very aspirational about these luxury products. In a totally different way, it's not the same, but this idea of something aspirational is being sold to this upper tier, this like upper class of people, this 0.001% of people. So when he says it's alive and well, and we look at the economics of our time, we look at who is doing well and who is not doing well, it is this upper echelon of people, this 0.001% of people. That is my video for today. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.